Hello, and welcome to Flosstube and Variety Show number 45. I'm Emily Williams in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and I appreciate you joining me today. I was momentarily distracted because a bird flew across my view over there, sorry. In fact, I hope we won't be distracted. We've had some pretty strong thunderstorms today, and there are more forecasts, but at the moment it's sunny. That'd be nice if it stayed sunny while I'm recording. It's late afternoon on Friday, May 27th. Thanks so much for joining me. I am just amazed every week that there are more new subscribers, and I appreciate you joining me, subscribing. It's very fun to have you get on board here. And I hope you will continue to find things of interest. So this is Flosstube because it's about cross stitch, and it's a variety show because it's about other things. We'll see what today's variety show brings. What I talk about, I don't know. Possibly a little babbly today, it seems. I might be starting out a little babbly. Let's start with cross stitch. Flea Market Flowers by Holt is fun, and it's coming in slowly for a landing. I can't remember exactly where I was last time. I think I had started this block, so I've finished that and I've started this block. So you see, I'm pretty getting there, but still lots of stitches. I do like this. I'm reminded as I get back into that color that I wish it were brighter, but I'm not going to change it now, and it's fine. It's fine. I happen to like bright colors. Talk about that a little later also. I also have worked a little bit more on Tiger Stare. I think it's called Snippet Tiger Stare. I think it's a snippet from a larger pattern, and this is by Charting Creations. And I am using the called for colors on 18 count sand Aida by Zweigart. And I think this is one of the colors that Zweigart produces directly. I do not think this is a over-dyed or hand-dyed or anything. So it's coming. Around in here, we begin to get a lot of black. And what my current thought is that I think this right here might be the edge. So I'm gonna bring the edge over and get this corner filled in, and then go down to the bottom of the design, and then move that way. That's sort of what I have been doing on Under the Roof of Blue Ionian Weather, which I'm not going to show today because all I did this week was grid the new section. Gridding takes a lot of time, but it saves a lot of time in the long run. So the fact that I messed up gridding it a couple of times didn't make it take less time, I'll tell you that. But I will show you a purple sampler. So I'm just getting a good grip on it here. New sections are the numbers. And I don't know, it's possible that that little angular border is new, but then the two borders underneath it. And you notice I'm being very ambitious in saying, yes, I'm going to finish it this year because I've put 2022 there. So yes, I will finish it this year. But the fact that I've started again on the borders says that I have figured out at least some amount of the next vertical length here. What is done here is about 12 inches, just shy of 12 inches. And it's going to be at least 24 inches, and I think it's going to be more like 27, 29, 30, something like that. So I have way more fabric lengthwise than I'm going to need because I didn't feel like cutting it off before I really knew. So that is coming along. Oh, and I should tell you that I'm not making that up out of my head. A lot of what I'm working on is from this Ultimate Sampler Source Book by Brenda. I've pulled a few things from here, which is one of the Bristol Orphanage samplers. This one is Harriet Salt, charted by Hands Across the Sea, that's it. I keep forgetting. I still have it in my mind, I might possibly stitch this whole sampler, but it's pretty large. I don't know, we'll see. And then I added a couple of items from this. This is a collection of sampler borders from one of the Ukrainian Etsy shops that I have mentioned before on the channel, HappyMoodPoint. And I'm using the trees, which I think are these right here. It's sort of hard for me to tell looking at the camera. And I think that other little tiny border, squares and X's, is actually from the Harriet Salt sampler. I think it's down here. But if I never stitched this chart, I would get a lot of use of the borders, I think, that are in there. So that has been fun to work on. And I have, as I say, I've been gridding Under the Roof of Blue Onion Weather, and I think I'm ready to get started stitching on that again, because I think when I counted the gridding last night, I found it was correct. Let's hope so. So, what else do I have to talk about with regard to cross stitch? So next weekend is the first weekend in June, and the first weekend of every month is the Blackbird Designs Weekend Stitch-Along. And the idea is that there's a hashtag, and everybody who's working on a Blackbird design who wants to participate can work on it during the first weekend of each month and then post their pictures of their progress on Instagram and wherever else those kinds of things get posted. For me, it's Instagram. It's not, I don't know, Twitter, I suppose, does that too? Not sure. So I've been trying to think about what I want to work on next. So I'm deciding there are three things that I have in mind. One is this piece called It's Spring Fever. And this is maybe 2015. It's not a new release. I just recently got it, but it's not new. And it might be, I don't know when it is, but it's part of the Loose Feathers series for the birds. But I like that. It's blues and grays and greens, I guess. The model is stitch showing over-dyed cottons, and I'm almost certain I would use DMC, because I have DMC, and it does give a DMC conversion. So I might do that. That is 91 by 91 stitches, I think. And if you do it on 36 count 2 over 2, it would work out to 5 inches square. So that's kind of cute. I also have this book. Let me pull that out. Sweet Land of Liberty. Now I did Salute to Abigail last year. Very much enjoyed stitching that. And have I done anything with it? No. I really should pin it and get a frame for it, because it's quite nice. I really was pleased with how it turned out. But I had wanted to stitch either this one or this one, and let me just open it to better pictures. So here is, this one is called In Full Glory. And that one is not very big. It is, if you were to do it at 15 count or 30 count 2 over 2, 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads, it would be about 5.5 by 6.5 inches. So I like that one. And I also like another one in here called American Eagle. And this one, if you do it on 32 count linen, it would be a little bigger. It would be 6 by 7 roughly. But I love the bunting on that house. And there's two other projects in here, I think. I think there are 5 projects altogether. This one is another one. And I like that one, but it's designed as a circle. not as a square or rectangle, so there's some things missing because they only designed out to the edge of the circle. So if I were to do that, I would either have to decide I was going to finish it in some circular way or make up how to make it bigger, make it square or rectangular. So I don't know. There is something else in here. I wonder what it is. Let me look at the, oh yes, this one. Yeah, a lot of people, I've seen this on Instagram. This is called Liberty Rose. And the idea here, you notice it's two pieces of linen stitched together. The idea is that you and a friend would each stitch the whole thing and then you would trade half of it. So you and your friend would each have a completed piece that was a joint project. But I don't have a friend who does cross stitching, so I'm not going to do it that way. If I were to do this design, I probably wouldn't even pretend. I would just do it all on one piece of linen or Aida or whatever. And you may have noticed that most of what I work on, if not, well, most of what I work on is Aida, because that's what I'm most comfortable with. I've used it much more. I do have several pieces on Lugana, which is an even weave. But this Blackbird, this is a piece of 40 count Nantucket Brew linen. And it is showing, I don't know, people always have trouble getting the color to be right. It's darker than that. It's about like the darkest shadows of this, I guess. It's kind of on the dark gray side, but I think it would look good on either of those two patriotic pieces, especially. I don't think I would do this on that. I think this needs something lighter. So, not sure. But by next time I video, I probably will have started, because I usually consider the Blackbird weekend to be Friday to Monday at least, if not even longer. So that is what I want to talk about with regard to cross stitch. Now, a couple of notes, and I have notes here. Let me be sure I can get my computer up. Okay, so the thing I wanted to show you now is I'm going to actually unwrap this with you. So you may, if you are into sampler style cross stitch, you probably know that Blackbird Designs over the years has produced more than just cross stitch patterns. They've also done quilt patterns, and they had a fabric line. And the fabric line was probably 5 years ago, I'm guessing. I don't know, because I was not back in the cross stitch world when this was released, and it never struck my radar as a quilter. But it's definitely struck my radar now, because I know about Blackbird Designs cross stitch charts, and I've heard tons on other floss tubes about Blackbird fabric. So I could not resist. I pre-ordered back last August, possibly, fabric from Kitten Stitcher, otherwise known as Shakespeare's Peddler, Teresa Vanette, and she has a floss tube, and I think I've mentioned her before, her floss tube. It's not that regular, but it's enjoyable when she puts it up. But her shop was doing pre-orders for Blackbird fabric, and it finally has come in. It was supposed to come in February, then they said, oh, it's been delayed until March, April, and now the end of May, finally, just yesterday, I got this. I ordered a fat quarter bundle. Now, isn't that just, first of all, if I were to never do anything with this fabric, there's a certain value in the beauty of the stack of fabric. I do like it. I do like a fat quarter bundle from that standpoint, but that would be a waste. So not only am I going to do something with it, I'm actually going to open it. Oh, but you're spoiling it, Emily. Yes, I am spoiling it, because I'm really curious. Since it just came yesterday, I decided that I could hold back my curiosity long enough to just open it here. So I'm just going to very quickly, there's a large scale print, a nice creamy goldish stripe and some polka dots, and a small scale print with roses, and here's a little calico type print and another type of stripe, a little darker. Pretty, huh? And now I think this is the end. This may be a repeat of that first, there may be two pieces of this. That sometimes happens, the large scale prints. If you're really going to use them appropriately, you might need more than one. You need bigger pieces of them. So here's the green colorway of these same things. I'm not going to necessarily show everything, but I do like that. And so I would say these are sort of sagey green. It's hard to tell, almost a dusty blue green. It's a little hard to tell what color they are. Then we have that large scale print in the rose color. I don't know what kind of flower those are. Here's a stripe. It's very pretty. That's a nice one. Here's the small scale, and here's a creamy background with the red polka dots. And here we're into the blue colorway. Here's the large scale in blue. Here's the medium scale, blue roses. And then they have sort of a brownish colorway, sort of mulberry maybe. That's nice. Here's the calico. This has been in every colorway, I just haven't shown it because, and I'm really eager to get down to the last thing, but this is the brownish, I don't know, I would call it a dark or a grayed out or something, a mulberry color. But now here is a panel of the cross stitch sampler fabric, which this is one of the things that the Blackbird design is known for. And so when you get the fat quarter bundle, you get a complete panel, which is more than a fat quarter. Looks like it's maybe 2 fat quarters. It's not, it might be a half yard, a complete half yard, selvage to selvage. But that's kind of cool. And again, so a couple things about this, which I said I was gonna talk to you about color a moment ago when I was doing what I had vowed I wasn't gonna do anymore, which was to complain about the color of Flea Market Flowers. Again, I'm not really complaining about the color of Flea Market Flowers, but I will note that I like pure colors, and you might say jewel tones, highly saturated colors. And so this set is not that. This is muted colors, not pure colors. This, yeah, it's sort of duller. And I think that the reason for that, for this set, is because it's kind of reproduction fabric. It isn't directly a reproduction, but it's in the vein of reproduction fabric. And I guess I really mean maybe mid-1800s, mid-19th century reproduction fabric. Sometimes that's called Civil War reproduction fabric. But that's the colors that seem to be picked up in reproduction series collections of fabric, and they are not my favorite colors. So why did I buy an entire fat quarter bundle of this fabric? Well, first of all, because I have become at least a somewhat member of the cult of Blackbird. And so because I'm a member of the cult, I had to make a purchase at the altar of Blackbird fabric. I hope that nobody's going to be offended by my pseudo-religious terminology. I don't mean to offend anybody, but I'm just trying to be funny. So please take it in that light. So that's one reason. And the other reason is because whereas I may not naturally gravitate toward these colors, they are very much on point for colors that people are using now in their home decorating and other things. In fact, even baby items now are more muted, much more muted than when my child was a baby, or I think when I was a baby, pastels, that is pure colors, but pastel versions of them were the thing. When my son was the baby, the idea was that children need to look at bright colors, and in particular, they need to look at high contrast. And so black, for the very early infancy, up till maybe 3 or 4 months old, having a baby look at a lot of black and white with very crisp lines where the black and white meet, and black and white and bright red, a pure bright red, were very much thought to be good for eyesight development. So I love those bright colors, and I believe that because that's what I was led to believe when my son was an infant. But these are very much the colors, and if I were to make a quilt out of this fabric, which it's beautiful, it would make a beautiful quilt, I think. I would have people interested in that quilt. Now, I have a commission and a gift that I'm supposed to be focusing on, so don't anybody get thinking that, oh, if I message Emily, she'll whip me up a quilt. I won't say that I won't whip you up a quilt, but I might not whip you up a quilt until October or November because I have to keep moving on the other projects. But, if I make this, I may decide that I love it. I mean, certainly I have these colors in my own decor. I'm looking at my family room, which I can see from where I'm sitting, and they match. It would match a little bit. Now, my colors are a little bit more saturated than this, but it would still go. So that's, I don't know, that's sort of my thinking. Now, what is going to happen next with this fabric? I always pre-wash my fabric that I'm about to work with. Unless it is 10-inch squares, layer cake, some manufacturers call it a layer cake, or 5-inch charm pack, or the mini charm packs. I don't pre-wash those. I don't pre-wash jelly rolls. But fat quarters and up, I pre-wash. The other time I don't pre-wash is if it's a kit that comes, for instance, I've done a couple of block of the month projects where that month's fabric comes with that month's pattern, and I don't pre-wash that. But unless it's from one of those very small circumstances, it's a pre-cut of 10 inches or jelly roll or charm pack, or it's from a block of the month style kit, every piece of fabric in my sewing room has been pre-washed. And I have done so few of the block of the month or those pre-cut type groupings of fabrics that I know what's been pre-washed and what hasn't. So I know in my sewing room that if I pick up a piece of fabric, it's been pre-washed. And why do I do that? Because some people don't. It's because fabric shrinks, and fabric tends to shrink unevenly, the warp direction compared to the weft direction. It's just how it's woven and how much tension is put on those threads while they're in the loom. So I want my fabric to stay square after I've washed the project, the resulting project. And I want any possible color bleeding to happen in the pre-wash, not in the finished project. Now there's also a product called Color Catchers, which I think Shout is the brand name that those are sold under. And I have provided those with 1 or 2 quilts that I've given away, thinking that if the person ever washed the quilt, they should use that. And especially one of the quilts I gave was to my aunt, and it had white background and intense blue, beautiful blue fabric. It was a Jacob's Ladder quilt, which maybe if I can find a picture of it, I'll put it up here. but I put some color catchers in the package with that so that if she ever were to wash the quilt, she would be able to do that. Now, the other thing that I don't do is I don't pre-wash my batting. Now, cotton batting will shrink maybe 3% when it is washed. So if you started out with a quilt that's 100 inches, it might only be 97 inches after you've washed it. The batting might shrink that way. And the reason I don't pre-wash the batting is because, first of all, it is not recommended by the manufacturer to pre-wash it. And secondly, once or twice when I have pre-washed it, it makes the batting thicker, I would say. Because it shrinks without anything stabilizing it, it just draws up. And so it gets smaller and thicker. And that is not usually what I'm after. I live in North Carolina. If I make a quilt that I expect to ever allow to touch my body after I finished it, it needs to not be a heavy quilt, because I don't want a heavy thing over me in North Carolina. I mean, even in the winter, it does get cold here in the winter-ish, kind of cold, a little bit cold. So we do use quilts in the winter, but certainly once it gets to springtime, it has to be a lightweight quilt or I don't want it near me. So I use cotton batting, lightweight cotton batting that has a nice drape to it, and I don't pre-wash that. So if a quilt that I make is washed, which, for instance, the baby quilts that I make, they are, I'm sure, washed by the parents, the batting will shrink, and then you get that beautiful crinkly look that a quilt that's been washed has, as opposed to a quilt that has never been washed, where the top was beautifully pressed before it was quilted, which of course it should be, and the back was pressed before it was quilted, and then the quilt was done, and then it was bound, and it was never washed. It's beautiful. It is a beautiful effect, but that crinkly, comforting look to a quilt happens when you have washed it. And in particular, for me, I think that pre-washing the fabrics takes the unevenness of shrinkage out of my piecing, and not pre-washing the batting will give it enough crinkly, comforting look to it that I think that's fine. So that's what I do. So the next destination for these fabrics will be to pre-wash them. I might put them, since they're fat quarters and they have, raw edges on 3 sides, I might put them in some sort of a mesh bag to keep them from overly raveling. I might do that. Also, occasionally I have actually pinked the edges of fabric of this sort when I'm going to pre-wash it. So, and a third way that I sometimes pre-wash it, again, remembering that my goal in pre-washing is primarily shrinkage control, which primarily happens in the dryer, is sometimes I just saturate the fabric with water and maybe 1/4 of a drop of detergent just to get some of the sizing out of the fabric, and then wring it, blot it dry, a little bit of gentle wringing out with a towel, and then put it in the dryer. So I may do that, because that will also help to control raveling that is pretty inevitable if you put something in the washing machine. So I just wash it by hand in a sink. And wash it by hand, meaning get it wet with the tiniest bit of detergent, and then give it a very good rinsing to get the detergent and especially the sizing out of it in a little warm water. That's what I do. So that is the main content for today. When you came across this video, you might have noted that I have a thumbnail that I'm trying out. This is because my last video, YouTube picked the thumbnail. I'm going to assume it was mostly at random, because it was at some time when I was scratching my nose and it sort of looked like I was picking my nose, and I thought, yeah, maybe I better take control over that. So I'd love to know what you think of it, if it's good, or if I should do something different. It's a photo. The one I've made is a photograph of a peony from my friend's yard. And that is all for today. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to catching you next time, and many blessings to you, friends.